The 1995 Philippine 25 Sentimo coin belongs to the Flora and Fauna series, which was issued by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas (BSP) from 1983 to 1994, and then continued with new mint years into the mid-1990s, although the BSP introduced the improved Flora and Fauna series starting in 1995. Many coins in the lower denominations like the 25 Sentimo still retained the familiar earlier design during the transition period. This makes the 1995 issue an interesting piece, bridging to numismatic eras. The early 1990s, the Philippines was undergoing a period of economic reforms and modernization after the political changes of the late 1980s. The BSP aimed to stabilize the currency, modernize the banking system, and create coins that reflected national pride and cultural heritage. The Flora and Fauna series, first introduced in 1983, was part of this effort. Each denomination featured important national symbols, either native animals or significant plants alongside historic Filipino figures. The obverse of the 1995 25 Sentimo coin features the bust of Juan Luna, one of the most celebrated Filipino painters and a hero of the Philippine Revolution. Luna was not only known for his art, but also for his involvement in nationalist movements during the Spanish colonial period. His portrait symbolizes Filipino talent, intellect, and patriotism. The reverse side shows an image of the wailing Vando, Sanderian, of an orchid species considered one of the most beautiful flowers in the world and often called the queen of Philippine orchids. The depiction of this flower in the coin's design emphasizes the country's rich biodiversity and botanical treasures. Surrounding the design are the inscriptions Republica ng Pilipinas and the coin's denomination 25 Sentimo along with the mint year 1995. At the bottom, the 1995-5 Sentimo coin was minted in brass, which gave it a distinctive golden color. It has a diameter of 20 millimeters, a weight of around 3.6 grams, and a plain edge. Brass was chosen not only for its durability, but also for its aesthetic appeal and resistance to corrosion, important qualities for a coin meant for everyday circulation. While the exact mintage numbers for the 1995 issue are not widely published, it is considered a common coin in circulation. During the mid-1990s, however, pristine uncirculated specimens, particularly those in mint state MS or proof-like condition, are more difficult to find because most were heavily used in daily transactions. In 1995, the Philippine economy was in a growth phase, with increasing urbanization and a shift toward industrialization. The 25 Sentimo coin was used for small transactions, such as jeepney fares, small candies, and basic goods in public markets. Despite its small value, it played a significant role in making change for larger denominations in everyday trade. The late 1990s, the BSP began phasing out the older Flora and Fauna coins in favor of the BSP series introduced in 1995 for hire. This coin marks a major shift in the country's monetary identity, heritage, and security. 2014, the Philippines had not updated its coin designs for several years. Older coins, including those from the BSP coin series, 1983 to 2017, were beginning to show signs of wear and were prone to counterfeiting. The BSP aimed to introduce a new series that would feature enhanced security features, national symbols, indigenous flora, durable materials. The 2014 25 Sentimo coin was released as part of the first wave of the NGC coin series. The new coins had simpler and more modern design. The year marked 2014, a clean and minimalistic layout. Juan Luna (1857–1899) was a Filipino painter and revolutionary. His masterpiece Spoliarium became a symbol of resistance and pride, and he was deeply involved in the Philippine struggle for independence. The reverse side of the coin shows an image of the Catmandillania philippinensis flower, a native plant, the official logo of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. The catman tree produces large, attractive flowers and is a symbol of biodiversity and native pride in the archipelago. The change from brass to nickel-plated steel reflects BSP's goal to reduce production costs while maintaining coin integrity. While worth only 0.25 php, the 25 Sentimo coin is essential for exact transactions, especially in public transport, market exchanges, vending machines. Despite its low value, it remains in daily use, particularly among coin-operated services. Each coin in the NGC series is symbolic. For the 25 Sentimo, Juan Luna represents nationalism and criticized The similar appearance of lower denomination coins 1, 5, 10 due to uniform color and size. However, collectors and nationalists appreciated the modern feel and patriotic elements, traded among numismatists interested in the full NGC series. The NGC series continued with future updates and remains the current circulating coinage in the Philippines. The 2014-25 Sentimo coin stands as a milestone of modernization and cultural celebration in Philippine currency history. The 2014 Philippine 25 Sentimo coin is far more than just loose change. It represents a conscious shift by the Philippines to honor its heroes, preserve its environment, and protect its economy with modern design and security. Through Juan Luna and the Catman flower, the coin embodies both the nation's storied past and its hope for a resilient future. The 25 Sentimo denomination has existed in various forms since the early 1900s during American colonial rule. However, its modern journey began in the 1970s, as during the Filipino and Angie Bagong Lipunan of coinage years, and continued through during Filipino heroes like Juan Luna in brass or bronze alloys, Able Series, 1975 to 1983, reinforcing Marcos regime with updated inscriptions, BSP Series 1995-017, showcasing the BSP seal. These were mass-produced and widely circulated. The 2014 version reintroduces Juan Luna, who also appeared on older coinage, bridging historical continuity with modern aesthetics. Juan Luna is not only famous for his paintings but also for his active role in the propaganda movement. Alongside Jose Rizal and Marcelo H. del Pilar, he was a passionate advocate for reform under Spanish colonial rule and used his art to express nationalist sentiments. By placing him on the 25 Sentimo coin, the BSP highlighted the role of intellectuals and artists in shaping Philippine identity, an uncommon but powerful choice for such a low denomination and rarely highlighted in public symbols. Its inclusion on the coin promotes ecological awareness, supports efforts to highlight indigenous plant species, emphasizes the beauty of local biodiversity. Catman is also a medicinal plant, traditionally used to treat coughs and stomach problems, tying the coin to the country's indigenous knowledge and healing practices. The 25 Sentimo coin, while small in monetary value, plays a critical role in low-value transactions, especially in public jeepney fares, traditional wet markets, palanquis, rural areas, where change is often scarce. Its consistent circulation keeps the microeconomy functioning, especially among low-income Filipinos. The 2014 coins were minted by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Security Plant Complex, located in Quezon City. BSP emphasized high-quality minting processes, uniform weights and sizes to meet modern vending and sorting machine standards. The use of minimalist aesthetic of the 25 Sentimo coin follows a global design trend, cleaner lines and fewer elements, easy-to-read text for all ages, avoiding clutter that could lead to counterfeiting. This approach mirrors international coin designs in countries like Canada, Australia, and European nations. 2014 inflation had significantly reduced the real purchasing power of coins, like the 25 Sentimo. Still, BSP kept them in circulation to maintain correct change availability, preserve economic accuracy in pricing, avoid rounding errors in small transactions. However, some businesses started refusing 25 Sentimo coins 67, replacing the English term peso on coins and banknotes with the Filipino word Piso as part of a national identity initiative. The 1 Piso denomination itself, however, had existed since the Spanish colonial period, when the silver peso was the primary trade coin. Over time, it transitioned through American colonial coinage, the Japanese occupation issues during World War II, and the post-independence coin series. The mid-1990s, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas BSP sought to modernize coin. 5. The BSP series was launched, and the 1 Piso coin was redesigned with Jose Rizal's portrait on the obverse. This change was part of a broader push to highlight national heroes on coins, reinforce patriotism, and unify designs under the central bank's new seal. 2010 version of the 1 Piso coin followed the standard BSP series template introduced in 2003, which featured a sharper, cleaner engraving of Rizal's portrait and a refined BSP seal. This version was minted during a period when coins were being mass-produced to meet high demand due to a growing population and cash-driven economy. Jose Rizal, 1861 to 1896, was chosen for the 1 Piso coin not just for his role as a national hero, but also because he symbolizes intellect, reform, and the peaceful pursuit of independence. Rizal's inclusion on the most common Philippine coin ensures that every citizen, from the countryside to the cities, regularly sees his image, reinforcing his enduring legacy. 2010 coin was made of nickel-plated steel, replacing the pure copper-nickel alloys of earlier decades. This change reduced production costs, while ensuring that the coin could withstand years of handling without corroding. The choice of nickel-plated steel also gave the coin a bright silver color, making it visually distinct from lower denominations. The obverse carries the inscription, Republica ng Pilipinas, above Rizal's portrait, affirming national sovereignty. Below the portrait, his name Jose Rizal is inscribed, making the coin a constant educational reminder of who he was. The year 2010 at the bottom indicates the minting date, important for collectors tracking year-specific designs. The reverse design features the BSP seal, adopted in 1993 when the central bank was rechartered. The seal includes a sun and 3 stars, symbols of the Philippine flag, and stylized images, representing stability and growth. The large 1 Piso denomination is centered prominently for instant recognition, crucial for quick transactions in busy markets and public transport. 2010, inflation was relatively low, and the 1 Piso coin still had notable purchasing power. It could buy individual candies, small bread rolls, and was a key component for making change. 1960s and early 1970s. It belonged to the second coin series introduced after the Philippines adopted the decimal currency system in 1967, replacing the old centavo and peso designs from the pre- and early post-independence eras. 1967. The Philippines used centavos and pesos that still retained certain designs influenced by the American colonial period. In 1967, a full redesign was made to highlight Filipino heroes, culture, and national identity. This period marked the introduction of the Flora and Fauna series for smaller denominations and historical figures for others. 1970 10 Sentimo coin was part of this modernization effort. The obverse featured the national hero Apolinario Mabini, known as the bull. Above his portrait, the inscription, Republica ng Pilipinas, Apolinario Mabini. This design aimed to honor Filipino nationalism and inspire civic pride. The reverse side displayed the coat of arms of the Republic of the Philippines, featuring the 3 stars representing Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, the sun with 8 rays symbolizing the original 8 provinces that revolted against Spain in 1896, the national motto, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, around the rim, the face value 10 Sentimo prominently at the center. The year 1970 was politically tense in the Philippines. President Ferdinand Marcos was in his first term, but the nation was experiencing economic inflation. Eroded the buying power of small denominations. The first quarter storm, a wave of student-led protests demanding political reforms, growing public awareness of Filipino heritage, influencing coin designs to feature national heroes instead of colonial symbols. The 10 Sentimo coin reflected the government's push to reinforce national identity in everyday objects. 1970 The 10 Sentimo had moderate purchasing power. It could buy small goods like candies, matches, or a piece of bread. Over the years, however, inflation reduced its value, and by the late 1980s, it was mostly used for giving exact change rather than significant purchases. 1970, issue was struck in large quantities at the Manila Mint under the supervision of the central bank. The design followed standard mintage procedures of the second series, with clean and simplified engravings for mass production. The 1970 10 Sentimo coin is of interest mainly to numismatists and history collectors. Circulated condition, very low monetary value, a few pesos. Uncirculated or proof condition can fetch higher prices, especially if part of a complete set. Historical value, significant for representing a transition era in Philippine coinage. 1970 10 Sentimo coin serves as a tangible reminder. The 1968 Philippine 10 Sentimo coin belongs to the first generation of Philippine decimal coins issued after the country fully transitioned to the peso centavo system in the mid-1960s. It was part of a new coinage series introduced by the Central Bank of the Philippines, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, reflecting the nation's cultural identity, history, and post-independence aspirations. 1968, the Philippines was experiencing economic and cultural transformation under the administration of President Ferdinand Marcos, who had taken office in 1965. The coinage system was still young, following the shift from the pre-1960s English series to the Filipino language series. This decade marked an era when the Philippine economy was gradually industrializing, urban centers were growing, and the central bank was pushing for modernization in currency design and production. The obverse front of the 1968 10 Sentimo coin features the portrait of Francisco Baltasar Balict as the great Filipino poet, playwright and author, often considered the Prince of Tagalog poets. His most famous work, Florandi at Laura, symbolizes the richness of the Filipino literary tradition and the resilience of the national spirit. Above his portrait, the inscription Republica ng Pilipinas reinforces national pride. Below the bust is the year of mintage 1968. The reverse back bears the coat of arms of the Philippines, featuring 3 stars and the sun, representing Luzon, Visayas and Mindanao, a shield with a stylized American bald eagle recalling U.S. colonial history, and a lion from Spanish heraldry symbolizing the country's colonial past and independence struggle. The legend Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas marking the issuing authority. 1968-10. Sentimo had modest purchasing power, but could still buy small everyday goods, such as candies, local newspapers, or a portion of street food. Coins of this value were essential for giving exact change in public transportation fares, sari-sari store purchases, and small market transactions. The late 1960s were a politically dynamic time in the Philippines. The country was navigating between modernization and political tension. Infrastructure projects were on the rise, and there was a growing emphasis on Filipino cultural identity. The Filipino language was increasingly used on coins, banknotes, and official documents, a symbolic shift from English, representing national pride. This cultural awakening was mirrored in the coin designs, which featured national heroes, writers, and figures from Philippine history. For collectors today, the 1968 10 Sentimo coin is valued more for its historical importance than its metal content. Since it is a base metal coin, its market value depends on condition. Circulated, common, often worth only a few pesos to local collectors. Uncirculated mint state, much rarer and can attract collectors seeking complete year sets from the 1960s Filipino series. Proof coins, extremely rare, possibly produced. The nation was experiencing significant political tension, economic challenges, and growing calls for reform. The Central Bank of the Philippines, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, BSP, was responsible for issuing the country's coinage, which reflected the economic and cultural identity of the nation. The 1985 1 Piso coin belonged to the Flora and Fauna series, a set of coins introduced in 1983 to replace the previous ng Bagong Lipunan ABL series. This series aimed to showcase the country's natural heritage, featuring plants, flowers, and animals alongside notable Filipino heroes. The engraving was sharp and detailed, reflecting advances in minting technology of the period. The reverse shows the Philippine coconut palm, Cocos nucifera, a plant deeply tied to Philippine agriculture, economy, and culture. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas encircling the top. The value 1 Piso prominently at the center. The coconut tree represents the versatility and economic importance of the Philippines. Agricultural products. The coin was minted in large quantities by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and was chosen for durability and resistance to corrosion in the humid, tropical climate of the Philippines. 1985. The Philippine peso faced inflationary pressures due to political unrest and a weakening economy. The value of the peso was declining compared to major foreign currencies, making coins like the 1 Piso more common for everyday, small transactions rather than large purchases. At the time, Philippine peso 1 could still buy small snacks, jeepney fares, or a loaf of bread, quite different from today's purchasing power. The 1 Piso, 1985 coin was part of a broader effort to promote national pride. Each denomination in the series carried an image of an important plant or animal species, pairing it with a hero to symbolize the richness of both Philippine history and nature. 1985 1 Piso remained in circulation until the BSP launched the BSP series in 1991, which replaced the Flora and Fauna designs with new ones. January 2, 1998, the BSP demonetized the Flora and Fauna coins, meaning they were no longer legal tender. However, they remain collectible today, especially in uncirculated or proof condition. Common circulated condition, low numismatic value, often 10 to 20 Philippine pesos for average worn coins. Uncirculated condition can fetch higher prices, Philippine peso 50 to 150, depending on mint state and rarity of strike. Proof or mint error coins, these can be more valuable, especially if they show doubling, MIS strikes, or off-center minting. Collectors often seek the 1985 issue, because it is among the later years of the flora and fauna. 1 Piso before the redesign. The 19851 Piso is more than just an old coin, it's a small piece of Philippine history. It represents the artistry of coin design during the Marcos era. 1 Piso coin minted in 1985 came at a turbulent time in Philippine history. President Ferdinand Marcos had been in power for 2 decades, and the country was under heavy political strain. The assassination of opposition leader Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. in 1983 had intensified public dissent, leading to a period of uncertainty. The economy was struggling, and inflation was slowly eroding the value of the peso. 1983, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, BSP made the decision to retire the ng Bagong Lipunan ABL coinage series, which had been closely tied to the Marcos era, focused less on politics and more on national pride, celebrating the Philippines' rich biodiversity, while still honoring national heroes. Jose Acute Rizal featured on the 1985 1 Piso obverse was not a new face in Philippine coinage. His image had appeared on multiple peso coins since the 1960s. By keeping Rizal on the largest base denomination coin, the BSP ensured that the country's most revered hero remained part of daily transactions. His presence reinforced ideals of education, patriotism, and reform. The reverse design featuring the coconut tree was more than aesthetic. In the 1980s, coconuts were a major export commodity for the Philippines, especially in the form of copra and coconut oil. The tree's versatility, providing food, drink, shelter, and raw materials, symbolized the resilience and resourcefulness of the Filipino people. The coin's copper-nickel composition was chosen for durability, but there was also an economic factor. Rising metal prices meant the BSP had to balance durability with cost efficiency. Copper-nickel alloys provided a silvery appearance while resisting corrosion in the Philippines' humid climate. Back then, the 1 Piso coin had substantial purchasing power. In Manila, 1 peso could pay for a short jeepney ride, buy a small serving of halo-halo, or get a pack of chewing gum. In rural areas, it could cover the price of fresh produce or a newspaper. It was truly a workhorse denomination, pairing a hero with a plant. The Flora and Fauna series, visually tied together to major pillars of the Philippines' identity, its human legacy, and its natural heritage. The 19851 Piso reinforced this connection every time it exchanged hand. While the coin looked impressive, the value of the peso was slowly declining. In the 1980s, the government faced debt crises, and the exchange rate against the US dollar weakened. This economic reality meant that coins like the 1 Piso began to be used for smaller, everyday items rather than medium-value transactions. The BSP used modern coin presses, capable of high. 1980 was part of the Flora and Fauna series, introduced by the Central Bank of the Philippines, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, BSP, in the late 1970s and continued through the 1980s. This series was designed to highlight the country's natural heritage, both plant and animal life, while also modernizing coinage design. Before this series, Philippine coins mainly featured political figures, national heroes, and symbols of the Republic. The Flora and Fauna series marked a fresh artistic direction, shifting focus towards showcasing the country's biodiversity, which was and still is a source of national pride. Features the Philippine coat of arms, which includes a shield with symbols representing both the Spanish colonial past and the American Commonwealth period. The 3 stars represent Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. The sun symbolizes liberty and independence. The eagle and lion represent ties to the United States and Spain respectively, appears beneath the image, along with a clean, minimal design that made it easy to identify. 1980. The Philippines was under the administration of President Ferdinand Marcos. The economy was in a transitional phase. Rapid infrastructure development was occurring, but external debt and political tensions were rising. The 25 Sentimo coin, while small in value, still had noticeable purchasing power. In urban markets, it could buy a small bread roll pandizzle, a jeepney fare for short distances, or a piece of local candy. Rural communities often used such coins in everyday trade for vegetables, snacks, and other small necessities. It was also a popular coin for school children to collect, since its design was visually appealing and distinctly different from older coins, featuring only political figures. The 1980 issue was mass-produced for circulation, so it was not initially considered rare. However, coins from this period in uncirculated or proof condition are harder to find today, as most have been worn down from decades of use. In the early 1990s, the Flora and Fauna series was gradually replaced by the improved Flora and Fauna series, and later the BSP coin series in 1995. The 1980 25 Sentimo eventually lost its legal tender status after currency reforms, but it remains a collectible item for numismatists. While a circulated 1980 25 Sentimo usually holds only sentimental and historical value, uncirculated or proof versions, especially in sealed mint sets, can fetch higher prices among collectors. Coins with minting errors such as misaligned strikes, double dies, or off-center designs can be worth significantly more. The 19805 Sentimo is more than just an old piece of metal. It represents a period when Philippine coinage celebrated biodiversity. An era of transition in the nation's economy and politics. A nostalgic memory for Filipinos who used it daily in their youth. Today, it stands as a reminder of the Philippines' rich cultural and natural heritage, making it a cherished keepsake for coin collectors and history.